Welcome to the Motivation Without the Hype podcast with your host, Gez Perez. He's an author, high-performance coach, and motivational speaker. This show brings you inspiring messages and interviews to unleash your greatness in life and in business. So let's get started.
Hi everyone, welcome to Motivation Without the Hype podcast show. My name is Gez Perez, a former procrastinator into an action taker. We bring you inspirational messages and interviews, including motivational insights, tips, principles, and proven strategies that you can take action without the hype to unleash your greatness in life and in business. We appreciate you plugging in and spending time with us. And we have a very special guest, and I'm super grateful to have him on our show. His name is Peter Mapagu. He's age 41, married with 3 beautiful children. He grew up in Western Sydney after migrating from the Philippines, studied at University of Wollongong, then graduated with a Bachelor of Commerce degree, majoring in marketing. He spent 14 years in corporate sales in multiple roles, leaving that to pursue a career in the fitness industry. He's also a high-performing, competitive natural bodybuilder and the owner of Rippon Fitness. Let's welcome Pete. G'day, Pete. How's it going?
Hey, Jez. Thanks for having me, guys.
Man,
super excited to be on.
Guys, if you haven't seen Peter Mapagu on Instagram, and you got to follow him. He's just an amazing human being. Adds so much value into the fitness and health industry, got so much wealth of knowledge and experience. So guys, I'm really excited to hear his story, his experiences, and I'm really looking forward to the golden nuggets that he's going to share today. So Pete, thank you so much for joining in today's show. To those who don't know you yet, please tell us about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, very good. Thanks, Jez. That's a really great intro. As Jez said, 41 kids, married, happily married, beautiful wife. Spent 14 years, or a lot of my, early career, if you will term that, into the corporate life, and moved into now the fitness industry. So, as Jez mentioned, from a migrant kind of family, working hard and kind of took no risk and things like that, to get me to this point where now owning my own kind of business or brand, if you call it, into the fitness industry, and hopefully kind of influence people into the right mindset in terms of how they're going through their journey, I guess. So for myself, and Jez probably put it there, he was a super procrastinator, and I'm going to put my hand up, and I was exactly the same. If you speak to anyone that probably knew me 18 to mid-20s, they wouldn't believe that I would be one of the more disciplined people that they would probably come across. So very good and grateful to be on this show to kind of share my journey on how I changed my mindset and how I got to the point where I am now.
So Pete, I know that there's a list of accolades that you achieved since going into the fitness industry and in your lifetime. And
Yeah.
I've seen and followed you over the years, and it's wonderful to see and watch your successes, particularly in the health and fitness industry. Now, I know that you are a bodybuilding champion, particularly in that category. What is the mindset that you bring, and how do you overcome setbacks, and how do you achieve that with triumph? Because it's been a journey for you. So yeah, share us about your story.
Yeah, I think, look, I got into bodybuilding or sculpting, whatever people call it these days, to actually prove to myself that I could do it. It was more, to give you a background, I actually was already training and kind of fluffing around at the gym. I actually hurt myself one time at basketball, and then I went to a bodybuilding show and got inspired, and I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. My mindset into doing that first show was really to belong on stage, and no one could comment that, what's that guy
Yeah.
doing there? So I did the show. I proved to myself that if I had followed a process from point A to point B and was true to that process, I could achieve that if I actually put that across other parts of my life. And once I actually did that, and I'm not even kind of doing it in this environment, but once I proved to myself that I could actually just follow a process, regardless of the outcome, first, second, or third in that first show. And mind you, I did actually come last um, in my first ever show, but that gave me the absolute confidence that if I actually put any sort of effort in my mind into something, I could achieve it. And that manifested into where I am today. I never really stopped, to be honest. From that first show, it's been go, 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 and I've made all those improvements and kept with the process. So, and I'll go into a little bit what I've achieved outside of that. But
What was the
first
driver for
show,
you? What was
sorry.
the driver for you? What was the internal driver for you to say, you know what, I've done the first show. Okay, I'm going to do the second show. W- Obviously, you learn from your experiences from the first one.
Yeah,
What
of
did you
course.
do to improve? I mean, you said to yourself, you said on the shows, it's a process that you got to follow.
I think that's all it was, Chess. I fell in love with the actual process. It was for me in that first instance, and I still to this day, I don't care about winning in that sense. Everyone wants to win, right? So everyone, no matter how much they tell you they don't want to win, they want to win. But for me, it was genuinely to beat myself. Yeah. So once I got to that process, I knew what it took, and I took myself to new levels. And what I'm very good at, and I'm not sure if how everyone else is, I don't let outside factors affect what I do. And I mean that in the sense is if someone that I'm competing against is doing whatever, that's fine. That's what they're doing. I will never change my lane or my process because someone else is doing something. That's their way of thinking, that's their way of doing it. This is my way in terms of how I want to get to where I need to be. And I'm very good at I guess putting myself in my mindset and in my process and not worry about everything else that goes on around me to get to where I need to be.
How do you do that? Because there's a lot of people that you've probably seen it as well, like in the industry, where they compare themselves to others. They don't see themselves as the greatest competition to
Yeah.
compete against themselves to getting better, but they look at the surroundings. How do you block off the noise? Because there are a lot of people who tend to do that naturally, but they tend to lose a bit of focus. How do you hone that in and just say, you know what, I'm going to block this noise, I'm going to go for it and focus?
I think it's not in an arrogant way too. I'm confident enough in what I can do and know that I've done it to my best ability, and that's all that's going to matter to me, right? So if I do X, Y, and Z, and I'm happy with that in terms of that's what I wanted to achieve, I don't care if that person beats me. If that person's better than me, then I'm happy with that, right? There's no kind of my main thing is have I done enough, and I true to myself have not taken any shortcuts. I'm happy for anyone to beat me or
Wow.
or lose in that
So,
sense.
how do you carry that over to the next show? Obviously, whatever the result may be, but you
Mhm.
give your heart, your soul, blood, sweat, and tears, the whole entire process, and you're dedicated to that time. How do you carry that momentum to the next level? How do you do that? Because a lot of people like, yeah, I achieved it, awesome, that's it. But for yourself, it's you. You've grown from where you are to where you are now, and you've kept on going. How do you do that? Where people kind of like hit that roadblock?
I think you just have got to give yourself some sort of purpose, right? So you always got to remember where you've come from. I think the biggest thing that people stop achieving is because their expectation that they put on themselves is sometimes, how do I say it? When they try and achieve or want to achieve certain things that they feel that they haven't achieved yet, they're not very grateful in terms of where they are, right? So I can probably always put myself back, and I always say to myself, and I alluded to earlier, if someone asked me or knew of me from when I was in anything between 18 all the way up to my mid 20s, that I was going to be a competitive bodybuilder, a disciplined person, and just a hard working person in terms of like just the grind, they would not believe you. That's not me then, right? But as I said to you, once I figured out that if I was true to a process and just expected things of myself, it's going to manifest to everything else. But I guess to answer that question, and I probably went around it a long way, is for me, I know that it's not just about me, right? So my kids see what I do, my wife see what I do, and to the degree maybe other people see what I do, and if I can inspire one or two people, that's enough for me to keep going, right? So I know it's cliche, but legit, it's true to this. I just do what I do because I genuinely love it. If I have the opportunity to inspire someone along the way, then like I'll be happy with that, you know.
What was the turning point for you to say, you know what, this is what I want to do? Because
In terms,
obviously, because
I'll tell you a
yeah,
good story. In terms of getting into the fitness industry,
yeah.
okay, so I had already started getting into the fitness industry or doing things way back when I started my first competition, probably before that. So I got my certification, and I still stuck into the corporate world for what are we now? 2020, at least another 8 years after, right? So how I got into the fitness industry 100%. So I sat there with my two daughters at the time. We didn't have my son yet. I said to my two daughters, whatever you want to do in your lifetime, whatever it is, whatever you want to do, I don't care, whatever it is, if you are happy with what you're doing, dad's going to get over it. You do it. I'm not going to get angry at you. I will get over it. And I actually reflected on that point. I said, well, I'm telling my two girls that whatever they want to do in life, if that's in the heart of hearts that want to do it. I sat there. I don't know what point I sat there. It might have been in my office in at work. But I said, you know what? I'm going to do this. So I started in my head planning out how I was going to leave the corporate industry. So I made plans. I spoke to my wife, very supportive. She, without her support, I wouldn't be in this position to even try and attempt this. Right? Having three kids, a mortgage, leaving a career to do something that's, if you ask many people, hard to start with. The fitness industry is hard to kind of have some sort of consistency. Um, but I just did it. You know what I mean? First year, I said, you know what? I'm not going to make much money. I'm going to have to build everything from scratch. Year two, year three, and I get to the point now where I don't even think about that anymore. You know what I mean? It's just like, how do I now expand what I'm doing? All those anxieties about not doing well or not going to get. Someone asked me actually last about 3 or 4 weeks ago, maybe even longer, will you ever go back to your old job? Never have I, in the time that I left, ever thought about going back. It's just almost something that I never did.
You
And I
mentioned
did it for
about
14
yeah.
years, right? It's something, I just felt like I never did that job ever, or that role, or that company, or yeah. It
How did
feels
you
like this
overcome
is
that?
my,
How did yeah, and how did you
yeah.
come over that fear? And you talk to your daughters, and it's like a reflection, right? It's like, yeah, do whatever you want, and it's like you're still at your current situation, but you made that decisive move. But what was that key factor for you, actually that draw to say, you know what, I'm gonna go 100%, despite of what's gonna happen. I know they're
Yeah.
gonna be challenges along the way. What kept you going? Because a lot of people out there, whether it's in the fitness industry, whether it's in life or in business, they're experiencing some fears, anxieties, the unknowns, the uncertainty. And you mentioned some keywords about being disciplined. How did you overcome that? Because there are people out there who are kind of stuck and still thinking about it. They love their passion, but they're just stuck with fear. How did you overcome that and to lead you to where you are right now?
There's pretty, so one thing that I remember resonated with me. He said, everyone's probably heard of Eric Thomas, right? And there was one thing that I was listening to or watching or whatever it was, and it was the line that he says, you have to give up who you are for who you can become, right? So when he said that, it did take me a little bit to kind of register what that meant. But he said, just because you're good at this doesn't mean you can be great, doesn't mean you can't be great at something else, right? I think that's everyone's biggest fear is to be able to let go of any situation. So ask anyone that has a passion, right? But it's making 150 grand a year. It's going to be hard for them to go, I want to give that up because I love knitting. You know what I mean? But I think if you're true to what you say in terms of this is your passion and dollar figures and status doesn't matter, then that's your fear is kind of taken away, right? I think anyway. So anxiety is bred by the fear of failure or not meeting an expectation, right? So I coach a lot of people. Yeah, a lot of people. Many of them are very anxious. And the most common anxious person's trait is they expect 100%. And if they don't achieve 100% or feel like they can't achieve 100%, they self sabotage, right? Because they know it's unattainable. No one can be 100%. No one can be perfect. I think once you can register to yourself that you're never going to be perfect in that sense, then you should be kind of free to kind of just get rid of all that fear, right? So again, my biggest thing is, hey, dude, I can be better than what I ever thought. Jez, I'll tell you, and this will go into, and I know you only got 30
Tell
minutes, so
me.
I'm gonna
No,
probably
man,
talk for
tell
an hour.
me.
But if growing up where I grew up, and a lot of it, a lot of the guys that we grew up with, we never thought that we were any more than where our area is, right? Until we realized that, you know what, we are better than where we grew up. But I think it's a belief system. When people just feed you that that's what you are, you believe it, right? So what's Les Brown says it. He goes, don't let people's opinion of you dictate your reality. And I actually take that from absolute belief in that. Just because someone tells you that's what you are, doesn't mean that's what you are, if that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, so fear is one thing, but I think if you're true to and your belief system is that you'll do well because you love it, then there should be no fear whatsoever.
That's powerful. And even when you're growing up, it doesn't matter whether it's in areas or upbringings. You get people. We're not dictated by people's opinions, or even in our parents as well. To say, you know what, you should be an engineer, but your passion doesn't call you to be an engineer, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where we need, and this is where the rubber meets the road is, do I want to live life to its fullest, knowing that this is my passion and purpose? Or I'm going to be dictated by someone's opinion to say, I'm kind of good at that and I'm not fulfilled and happy. And what you're doing is you're doing something that's fulfilling, that gives you happiness because you see it front face to face where people are actually transforming their lives. You become not only their health or their fitness coach, you also become part of their lives, and everything that you do with them through their journey, you're making a difference. And I believe that that gives you that type of fulfillment. So I know that you train high performing athletes, successful champions in your journey, whether it's ordinary people who have achieved extraordinary fitness goals. What is the first step that you actually do to help them succeed?
I guess there's no actual process. I mean, I like to discuss with them where their goals are, what's their why, essentially. So I very, how do I say this? I like trying to get into their mind more than their physiques, right? Because physiques are easy to manipulate, training volume, strength. But your mind could be from one to the other depending on factors that happen in your house or your mood and things like that. But in terms of training athletes or clients, my biggest outtake to them is play the long game, right? If we take shortcuts, you're going to get shortcut results. But if you're going long term, you're doing this forever, right? And that's and this is probably, and I'll give you an example. So I run programs in 12-week blocks, right? And when I have these consultations, I said, look, this is for 12 weeks. I can get you where you need to be in 12 weeks. We change the dial how we need to, but my main objective for you and anyone is how do I make this long term for you? How do I get you to understand that this 12 weeks should be the rest of your life? Yeah. So whether you're a competitor, you're a general population, it's really about how to understand and how to educate my clients in terms of how they can do life or health in a longevity kind of way. Yeah.
So
So that's
from
it.
your yeah, and so from your experience, you get newbies that come into your programs having a different type of mindset or a different outcome. I've seen through your following and your followers, your fans, and your Instagram feed, you get a lot of people who actually stuck with Rippon Fitness for many years. how are we able to, really uh, build a formula of success when it comes to body fat transformation? But you said it's always about long term. When you have someone that's new into the process, what are the things that you teach them to do the right thing? And you mentioned that shortcuts, you get shortcut results. When it's long term results. But how do you shape them to success, knowing it's a long term, journey? Because obviously you've seen them from where they were before,
Yep.
but when the outcome comes, it's like, man, they've gone through, and you've seen it, right? They go ups and downs, but you're able to instill confidence in them.
Yep.
How would you able to do that?
There's probably a number of things. There's one thing that I do is I never punish them, right? So if you do the wrong thing, you've done the wrong thing. You move on. Yeah. So I'd never let anything linger. Whether they're stuffed up on their diet, they didn't train as much. I always say that a journey of weight loss or body composition is never linear, right? It's up, down, sideways, up, down, sideways, right? Everyone's got a path to where they need to get to. So as long as they understand that, and how I articulate it is, don't be upset if you don't get your results in 6 weeks. It might take you a year. It actually might take you 2 years, right? But you're going to get there. But if you don't follow the process and you give up, then you've given up. That's it. You're never going to get there, right? So that's one thing that I do. And I also try to be very genuine in my approach with them. In terms of, I won't sugarcoat things, but I also won't be very dictatorship. Like, you got to do it my way or no way, right? I also, and with most things, you got to get someone to buy in, right? As a coach, as many good coaches should be, is you get people to buy into your system rather than you forcing it down their throats, right? And that's just my opinion again. I mean, any good coaches, and you talk high level NBA or whatever, all the good coaches, they always say is, we bought in. We bought into the system. So they're probably the two main things when I talk to people is, how do we go and make this long term? And I've talked about long term, but not punishing people if they don't get there sooner. Yeah. And get them out of that mindset. And then the other part of it is, I try and take stigma out of things like good versus bad food. Yeah. I'll say, what do you enjoy the most? I like ice cream. Eat ice cream. Right? Just fit it in your budget. Remember, Jez, when we first did that transformation, you couldn't believe that you could eat rice?
I know that was that was a life changer, right?
What do
Guys,
you mean you can't eat rice? Eat rice.
so to those who don't know, those who are listening in the podcast show, I worked with Peter Mapagu for about 8 weeks, and it's been a journey. And I went through a mindset, and if you see the previous social media posts of the transformation, and it was the first thing, right? I love rice. And when I spoke to
Who
Peter on a
doesn't?
consultation, are you serious? I can eat rice? Like, I have, because in my mindset, it's like no carbs, more cardio, heavier weights. Did you know, those who are listening, that what really resonated with me and how I got my success, not because I have a fantastic coach like Peter, but it's, you can actually eat more to lose more. And that was just the message that came in my mind. It's like, I got to eat more to lose more. And through that journey, and it still carries on. And this is the reason why Peter's on this show, because it's not about just telling you what you to do. It's pretty much just put a roadmap and say, this is the game plan. It's all about taking ownership and responsibility. And as a good coach, as what Peter has mentioned, is I can tell you what it is, I can show you the outcomes. However, I'm going to give as much as I can. But at the end of the day, it's going to be you that's going to be taking on board.
100%.
And,
Yeah.
and that's what I love about Peter. And what we're hearing is the stories of the principles about being disciplined, being consistent, and really trusting the process and really embracing the journey. And that just kept running through my head. Trust the process and embrace the journey. And going through this route, I got my successes and the outcomes. However, it's not just an 8-week program or 12-week program, but it's the education part. And this is why it's so powerful, is that people come into a fitness industry, and or whether it's weight loss or building muscle, but what I've picked out from this journey is the education. Pete, can you share about, because there's a lot of coaches out there and they're also listening, into this podcast show who are in this industry is, people come to give a bit of half information rather than education and telling about the type of workouts, but there hasn't been any relationship that's built between a coachee and a coach. What have you done to make it really successful in your Rippon Fitness program that you've got a lot of successes out? Can you share just a couple
Um,
of insights and things like that?
Look, I think just there's no, and it comes from a genuine place. I think when you're coaching people and they trust you, right? They've obviously come to you in a space where I need help, right? So when someone comes to you and approaches you for guidance or coaching, I think you have to be genuine in how you do it. There's got to be, and I'll say it, but a lot of coaches, and especially in the online space, please don't kill me for this, but it's all about the dollars, right? It's all about how much can I make for a period of time. Where hands on heart, I don't care about dollars, right? I do it because I want to do it. So when someone comes up to me, and a lot of them will tell you, I've done so many things for free, right? It's because I want to help. I want to help you. How do I help you get to where you need to be? It might be, I just need help with training, right? And there's people like that. I just need to know how to train properly. Hey, I need to work with my diet. I'm good with my training. It's about understanding what level of coaching they need, right? I've got high level athletes, Jez, that absolutely don't need me for training. And I'll tell you, they don't need me. They look great, but their mind is not there, all right? They can't see how good they are, all right? And I love that part. I actually love more into how I can coach their mind into believing that they can be champions. A lot of these people, you'd be surprised how many high level athletes, before they become high level athletes, don't believe that they're high level athletes, right? So I think for me, it's really just understanding, and again, my coaching and my success is more about how I build relationships. And this is probably through, and Jez, you know me from my old corporate days. I was a relationship manager, basically, right? And that's helped me in this industry. There's so many trainers out there that don't care about the relationship. It's a transaction. Yeah, it's very transactional. PT industry or fitness industry is very transactional, and there's churn. There's a lot of churn. But as you said, Jace, I've got a lot of clients that have stayed with me for a very long time, and that's how I actually gauge what I do, and I guess how I take those formulas and try and replicate it. Yeah.
So,
So
what would be your principles in life, or whether it's in fitness industry or in business?
yeah.
What is the three principles that you live by?
Well, consistency. Yeah. Consistency and and they go consistency slash play the long game. There's no shortcuts. Yeah, do the work. There's no ifs and buts about it. Yeah. So that's one. Work on yourself. And we talked about this early in the podcast, is don't let outside forces change your mentality, right? Or your way of thinking. Just because someone said that's not the right way to do it doesn't mean they're correct, right? Be true to your process and stick to it. Yeah. And if someone has guiding you in some sort, trust a process or go through the process. Yeah. And I think Inky Johnson says it well. Don't start something unless you're prepared to finish it. Yeah. And there's too many people that go dabble into it, not doing so well. Let's get to the next thing. Yeah. If that ever happened, Jez, if I gave up after my first show, we wouldn't be having this discussion right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, we wouldn't, because I came last. Actually, my two shows was last and second last.
And then what happened in the third show? Did you
I
did you
actually,
place?
it's funny enough, I got injured and I didn't train for a good 8 months. And then I did another show. So that was 2013, my first ever show. I jumped back on stage, I think the end of 2015, and I got a third in the short, in the novice, in the nationals, and a second in the under 65s. And then 2016, I won my first under 65 title at the AMB. and then I traveled to the Philippines and won the under 70 class over there in the Philippines. 2019 is then I went back onto that show. I came first in Canberra. I took out the South Coast Classic in the ICN in both the classic physique and the bodybuilding. So I took those categories out. I came second in the pro show for the NBA in the classic and third in the bodybuilding, I think. And then I came second in the world in the ICN in classic. So in 2019, I came second in the world in classic physique, and I took a third and a fourth in the bodybuilding. So in the world. So that was the world titles. So that's a long journey from being last to second in the world and taking a pro card and winning a few shows here and there. And it's not over. I like to be honest, my goal is to get that world title. But if someone's better than me on the day, then so be it. But as long as I'm driving for that, that's all that's in my head. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah.
Just the journey, what we've seen so far, is
And
phenomenal.
just when you think about that, you go, oh, but you look so good. So you're thinking, we're 2021 now. This was 2013, right? When I first started. It's not like it's an accident that I've developed my physique the way I have, or even my mindset the way it has. I've been kind of in this journey for 8 years now.
And people need to realize that, right? It's you're sculpting, and you build a foundation, you work on the frames, then you put on the pipings, and then to see the final product, it's gonna take a while. It's the exact same thing with bodybuilding or fitness modeling, whatever industry or category it is. But your journey from 2013 to where you are, in between that, is hard work and grind and going with your why, being congruent with your values, the passion, the purpose, the energy, everything that revolves around that.
Yeah, absolutely.
The setbacks and the comebacks and the winnings, and then now helping others do the exact same thing. It's wonderful.
Exactly. Well, the thing is, I actually didn't add. So 2013, I did that first show, right? And I said that I got injured. I actually slipped a disc and I couldn't train for 8 months, and then I did rehab. So that first show back after injury, I actually didn't squat, I didn't deadlift, I didn't do anything bent over. So I didn't and you're talking about setbacks, right? I just worked around it. I worked smarter. I worked out ways that I could get and develop my body the way I needed to. Even with that injury and there's limitations in training, I've managed to get a second and a third at a national level.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So when someone tells me, oh, I've got an injury, I can't do it, and all this kind of stuff, and the biggest one is I don't have time. I just look at them, right? I have my wife, and she's not home at the moment, but she's prepping for a show at the moment, right? And if our day is full, it's not uncommon for her to leave the house at 10 o'clock at night to go and train.
She's a wife. She's a mother of 3 kids. She works full time.
Yeah.
So there's no.
So when people tell me they have my face is blank every time someone tells me they have no time. It means it's not a priority.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
what's number 3? Did you share?
So I think it was just consistency, longevity, and just trust a process or follow a process right through. So don't start anything that you aren't willing to finish.
Awesome.
Yeah. So even my tasks, So they're my 3 principles probably at the moment that I'm going by anyway. So in both business,
it's been working phenomenal.
Yeah.
So I ask everyone on the show, what is your meaning of motivation without the hype, and how do you use motivation for your personal success?
Yeah. I guess motivation with the hype, it really just means, without the hype, right? It's just what actually drives you. What is the inner value that makes you want to succeed, right? And that's probably without someone, I guess the hype part of it is you're trying to impress someone or you want something material, right? When it gets deeper into you're proving something to yourself that you could do it, I think that's the motivation bit without the hype. There's days, Gez, that I don't want to go to the gym.
Yeah.
There's 100% days that I go to the gym. But the thing is, it becomes a discipline. So when discipline outweighs your motivation, that's when you really succeed, really. You know what I mean? It really is. When you don't want to impress anyone rather than you just following a process, I think that's when you're most successful because it's not about anyone else anymore. It's about how you can prove to yourself what you do. Yeah.
Powerful. Man, those who are listening and watching on this podcast show, I know and I trust that everyone's got a lot of insights just through this podcast show. And I can't wait to bring him back again with more insights and principles, not only just with health and fitness and wellness, but just the champion's mindset that Peter brings along. And, like whatever the outcome may be, it's all about becoming the best version of yourself and not giving up. And think about it, what we just heard moments ago. Through an injury, Peter was able to still triumph over that, did some workarounds. He turned his limitations into unlimitations. He turned whatever it may be in front of him and worked out a strategy and find a different type of game plan for his success and led him to winning a title, whether it's second place, third place. But the most important part is he still went to show despite of what he experienced in life. And that is a powerful lesson to learn. And guys, thank you so much, Pete. It was just phenomenal. I'm so grateful to have you on the show. And, those who are listening and watching, if you want to know more about Peter and what he does at Rippon Fitness, whether it's body transformation, whether it's more of an education, or you just need someone to chat with, Peter is your guy. So we've got all the links provided on the show notes that you can actually link to. You can connect with him through Instagram or an email. There are a lot of things and information through this podcast show that you can actually reach out to him, and he's happy to serve you all, those who are listening here on this podcast show. So if this episode has been helpful and uplifting, we would love for you to write a review to inspire more listeners to get plugged in. We will continue to provide high value content in each of every episode. If you don't mind sharing this podcast show on social media by inviting others, it would mean the world to me. Every time you tag me, we will get the opportunity to share those posts, and together we can make a difference in the lives of others through inspirational episodes just like this. So there you have it. In closing, to continue to unleash your greatness and tell yourself that I can, I will, and I must, and we'll see you on the next episode.